It's a big day in the history of the Josh Hammer Show. We started the show 3.5 years ago. Truthfully, we weren't sure what to make of it. We didn't really know what we were doing. I'm not entirely sure that I knew what I was doing. But we plowed ahead. We learned on the fly. And 3.5 years later, October 2025, this is day one of Newsweek's new partnership with Salem Media Group. As of today, October 16, 2025, the Josh Hammer Show is part not just of Newsweek, but is joining the Salem Podcast Network. You're likely familiar with the Salem Media brand through such universally known conservative personalities as Dennis Prager, Hugh Hewitt, Mike Gallagher, Dinesh D'Souza, and of course my late friend, CharlieKirk. More on him in just a moment. So this is a reminder, if you're listening to the Josh Hammer Show, as you've been doing for the past 3.5 years, go ahead and check us out over at YouTube, at Newsweek's YouTube channel. And if you're already watching on YouTube, congratulations for figuring out so early. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, leave us that review, and so forth. We could not be more excited for this partnership. I've been an employee of Newsweek's now for 5.5 years. I first started not doing any of this. I was the op-ed editor. I ran the opinion section. I was platforming a diverse viewpoint, the whole panoply of the political spectrum. That was my task, day in and day out. But I have plenty of my own convictions, plenty of my own ideas, plenty of my own passions. I've been a columnist for years. Read a weekly syndicated opinion column, goes up at Newsweek, Los Angeles Times, Real Clear Politics, Town Hall, Hot Air, Daily Signal, plenty of other places as well. So it really was time to get behind this microphone and tell it like I see it. We are so grateful to our new partners at Salem for this opportunity. In case you have not been listening to our show, if you've not been a subscriber for the past 3.5 years now, why don't you hear a little bit about me? Here's what you can come to expect. Whether you're a long-time listener just trying to get reacquainted perhaps with our new video format, or if you're a brand new subscriber, brand new viewer or listener, here's what you can expect moving forward. It's going to sound corny, but the first thing to know about me is this. I love this country, the United States of America, with every fiber of my being. Every fiber of my being. Some of my fondest childhood memories were riding a bicycle in my hometown in the annual 4th of July parade, the pageant. We would take our bicycles, go down to the street. The parade actually started around the corner of the street where I grew up. We'd take red, white, and blue tape, and we would decorate our bicycles. The high school band was there playing Yankee Doodle Dandy and songs like that. We would then march to the local park. There was a cake baking contest. Who could bake the most patriotic cake? The egg toss, the three-legged race. It was kind of a throwback to a bygone era, the halcyon days of Americana before today's bitterly divided, ultra-crass contemporary politics that characterizes American life today. I remember going to West Point, the United States Military Academy. I remember 9/11 all too well. I was in 7th grade when 9/11 happened. You see, I grew up about 25 miles north of New York City. You could see the smoke right up the Hudson River from the Twin Towers on that day. At the age of 12, I was able to mortally intuit that there is such thing as evil in this world. What we had just witnessed that day, what we had just experienced that day. If that is not evil, then there is no such thing as evil. But it stands to reason that if there is evil, there is also good. After all, why would God create the world? Why would God create the universe? For there only to be pain and harm and wrong to human beings and death, destruction, devastation, destitution, suffering. Doesn't make any sense. When you then arrive at that conclusion, when you're able to morally deduce that there is this age-old struggle going back to time immemorial, to Cain and Abel, if you want to go back that far in the Bible, to Jacob and Esau, go back as far as you want. When you are able to deduce that there is good and there is evil, that there is this moral dichotomy that makes the world go round, you are a conservative, whether you realize it or not. You see, I really was that guy, actually. I really was that guy back in high school. Now, my foreign policy views have changed quite a bit. We'll dive into that for the new subscribers in future episodes. But back in high school, when I was there in the post-9/11 period, in 05, 06, 07, I remember debating 25 liberal classmates in government class senior year of high school at the age of 17, 18 years old, defending enhanced interrogation policies at Guantanamo Bay. I really was that guy. I've not been on the left my entire life. And as I've gotten older and older, I've only gotten deeper in the weeds of what it really means to be a conservative. What it means to be a conservative as opposed to what it means to be a libertarian or a right liberal or various other maladies and strands of political thought that have really taken the American right, at least prior to 2016, in a deeply unfortunate, highly abstract, and overly ideological direction. I went to law school, where I doubled down on my love for the United States Constitution. I was born on Abraham Lincoln's birthday, after all. Honest Abe is my single favorite figure in all of American history, something that was only further buttressed when I did a fellowship years ago at the Claremont Institute, one of the homes of Lincolnian thought in the American political tradition. I clerked on the Federal Court of Appeals, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, working on wonderfully important and interesting constitutional and criminal law cases. And here we are years later, after a few things in between, and we're talking to you as part of this new partnership between Newsweek and Salem Media Group. I am profoundly grateful to my employer, Newsweek, for seeing me as the conservative who I am, for allowing me to have this platform, for allowing me to share my thoughts and musings with you on a daily basis now. It's not easy to be a legacy media institution in today's day and age and allow someone like me to be one of your forward-facing, most visible, publicly identifiable persons. It's not easy at all. Very few, very rare are the institutions that can actually pull that off. CBS News is trying to do something similar now when it comes to hiring Barry Weiss as their new editor-in-chief. CBS News deserves credit for that hire. We will see how that goes. As far as Salem Media Group is concerned, I already mentioned some of their best-known personalities. Salem Media Group has become renowned in the conservative and religious media space for decades as a home for hard-hitting, hard-charging conservative thought, for biblically based, religiously based conservative political thought. That is the perspective that you are going to hear right here on the Josh Hammer Show on a day-in, day-out basis. We're going to talk about the issues of the day for sure. We'll talk about the government shutdown or the budget battle or the Supreme Court case that is coming up, Donald Trump versus the imperial judiciary. We're going to get into all that and more. Of course we are. But we're also going to keep it at times higher level. because it is one of my firmest convictions when it comes to the art of politics, when it comes to the age-old question of how best to govern fellow men. Is one of my oldest convictions that you have to know where you are going. What is the logical endpoint? You must know whence you came beforehand and where you intend to go afterwards in order to have a sense of grounding in the moment, in order to know what you are here to do in the moment, and what you must fight to do to achieve for tomorrow and next week, next month, next year, ideally in the next generation. After all, what is politics if not the intergenerational transmission of one's people, one's culture, one's nation, and ultimately one's relationship with God himself? Is politics not simply, as Emmett Burke would have put it, a compact between the dead, the living, and the yet unborn? We will speak about religion. We will speak about the importance of the Bible. We will speak about the importance of Jewish-Christian relations. We'll speak about the importance of the Hebrew Bible, of the Old Testament, to the founding of America, to the very origins of Western civilization. Something that I elaborated on at great length in my book earlier this year, Israel and Civilization. And one of our tasks here moving forward on the Josh Hammer Show is to honor my late fallen friend, CharlieKirk. I first got to know Charlie when he was a columnist at Newsweek. I mentioned that I was first hired to be the opinion editor at Newsweek. One of the conservative columnists that I inherited was a man named CharlieKirk. At the time, his manager, who I was in touch with for the op-ed submissions, was someone named Andrew Colvett. You've probably seen Andrew on TV over the past month and a half or so. Turning Point USA spokesman, dear friend of Charlie's. CharlieKirk, struck by a transgender lunatic, furry fetishist, left-wing indoctrinated assassin a little over a month ago in Orem, Utah. His legacy must live on. It must live on through all sorts of channels, very much including the Salem Media Group family, of which this show, The Josh Hammer Show, is now a part. It was just this week, while I was offline celebrating the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah, something that Charlie would have encouraged all Jews to do. He loved it when the original people of the book actually kept their covenant and abided by the Bible. So it was while I was offline celebrating this joy that Charlie was being posthumously honored at the White House by President Donald J. Trump. Erika Kirk, Charlie's widow, as she always does, overly impressing in her public performance. Go ahead and let's watch this clip here of Erika Kirk at the White House earlier this week, talking about just a good old family story of their daughter and Charlie.
And before I close, I'll share with you that I asked our daughter what she would like to say to Daddy for his birthday. Excuse me. She said, "Happy birthday, Daddy. I want to give you a stuffed animal." "I want you to eat a cupcake with ice cream, and I want you to go have a birthday surprise. I love you," is what she said. And while our son is precious, he can't yet speak, in classic Kirk family fashion, his actions spoke louder than his words, and his gift to you, Charlie, and myself for that matter, was deciding to become the man of the house and be fully potty trained at 16 months. But Charlie, baby, I know that you're celebrating in heaven today, but gosh, I miss you.
Extraordinary public presence from Erika Kirk. Certainly, Turning Point USA has made a tremendous decision when it comes to their new CEO and chairman. But Erika, at this speech earlier this week, also doubled down on a concept, a theme about Charlie. Let's go ahead and watch that clip.
To all watching, this is not a ceremony. This is a commissioning. And my message is simple. I want you to be the embodiment of this medal. I do. I want you to free yourself from fear. I want you to stand courageously in the truth. Listen for the still, small voice of God. And remember that while freedom is inherited in this country, each of us must be intentional stewards every single day. God began a mighty work through my husband, and I intend to see it through. And the torch is in our hands now. It's in mine, it's in yours, it's in all of yours. It's in all the students with Turning Point USA.
It's in all of our hands to carry on this message of a biblical inheritance, of godliness, of doing our own small part to uphold one of the most important verses in the entirety of the Bible. A verse, actually, that we Jews will read in synagogue literally this Saturday as we begin the annual reading of the Torah anew, right at the very beginning of the book of Genesis. It's Genesis 1, verse 27. The idea that God made man in his image. Male and female, he created them. One thing that Charlie and I could not agree more on was that this notion right here, which Erika Kirk was getting at there in those comments, that this is the single most foundational ethical underpinning for all of American society and all of Western civilization. I thought of this a lot, actually, when I was searching through some old internet archive footage of Charlie's many campus talks, and I came across this clip. Go ahead and watch this.
Hello, how are you? Nice to see you. What's your name? Nice to see you.
I'm wondering, where kindness fits into your message, and if it does.
Yeah, I try. That's why I'm here, in part why. I think when we stop talking, that's when hatred begins. And I'll talk to anyone at any time about anything I've said or what I believe. Typically, more times than not, I'll be the one that's sitting there getting names called at me, being called things that are not accurate. When churches stop talking, when marriages stop talking, when friends stop talking, division and strife usually begins. And so I think dialogue is paramount to a healthy and functioning society.
He was really the master of this. He was the master of open dialogue. That ultimately, tragically, is what cost him his life. Dying as a literal martyr for the First Amendment, for free speech, for open discourse. But if you actually really do believe in the timeless assertion of Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, that God really did make man in his image, if you really believe in that, what is the alternative? What is the alternative to engaging with your political opponents? To hearing out their criticism in as happy warrior-like fashion as you can have it. I'm not saying don't ever get angry, don't ever show emotion. Folks who have subscribed to my show for years know that we show plenty of emotion on this show. That's not what I'm saying. But the day that our politics unwinds to a point we are not demonstrating the barest baseline of good faith argumentation, where we are no longer able to actually engage in the battle of ideas, whether it's abortion policy or immigration policy or tax policy or foreign policy or constitutional interpretation or anything, literally anything. The day that we cease to be able to do that, and the day that we replace the ability to engage in that sort of conversation, and that sort of rhetoric, and that sort of colloquy, the day that we replace that with, God forbid, with violence, when the pen is replaced by the sword, when the keyboard is replaced by the rifle, that's how republics die. That is how a free, self-governing people, a self-governing republic, a republic, if you can keep it, Benjamin Franklin famously said in 1787. That's how that dies. There is nothing good down that road. Civilization very much depends on it. It depends on things like the biblical inheritance, like the teaching of Genesis 1:27. Another one of the things that Charlie and I were in such strong agreement on is that you have the two biblical religions of Judaism and Christianity. This is, after all, I think in large part why we became close friends over the final years of his life. I'm a religious Jew. He was a sincere, devout Christian. You have the two biblical religions, then you have the geopolitical pillars of those religions. The geopolitical pillar of Christianity in the world today is undoubtedly the United States of America. The last great hope. The last great hope for mankind, as Ronald Reagan famously put it. The true Western Hemisphere shining city on a hill. The other pillar was the original shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan and John Winthrop in the 17th century, long before him, was alluding to. That would be Jerusalem. And what a scene it was in Jerusalem earlier this week. President Trump flying over to Israel, become the first president to speak in front of Israel's national legislature, the Knesset, the first time since 2008, the final year of the George W. Bush presidency. The president was in an amazing mood. I mean, classic Trumpian fare. I was making all sorts of jokes and laughs. He even had the left-wing opponents of Prime Minister Netanyahu, folks like Yair Lapid. I saw a clip of Yair Lapid in stitches. He was laughing so hard. Only Donald Trump can do that. The president was in good spirits. His whole team there, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, they were all in good spirits. The Israelis were in good spirits too. And the reason that they were in such good spirits is pretty obvious. Because after 2 horrific, grueling years, the remaining 20 hostages from under the Hamas jackboot in Gaza were indeed freed. Just an extraordinary turn of events, one that I personally did not see happening. I really didn't. Perhaps I'm overly cynical. I did not think it was going to happen. I thought that they would be a casualty of this war. But President Trump did not think that the hostages were going to be a casualty of the war. When I saw him speak on the 1-year anniversary of October 7th, on October 7, 2024, at a then campaign event in South Florida, he doubled down that he was going to get the hostages freed. And he did exactly that. He deserves a tremendous amount of credit. Credit that many folks on the left, and frankly, some folks, it seems, on the quote-unquote right, are loath to give him. They don't seem to want to give Donald Trump credit for that. Here was our friend, Congressman Chip Roy of Texas, recently talking about exactly this. Go ahead and watch.
Well, look, I think what's great here is that the president's successes, his track record, are speaking for itself. So if fact that Democrats are having to swallow to say that, hey, there's a success here, there's something that is worthy of praise in itself, is a win. Of course, they're not going to swallow their pride and actually give the president credit. But in fact, it is the president who gave us the Abraham Accord in his first term, who has now found a way to get to a peaceful moment. I mean, I want to be. I don't talk about no hitters in the 7th, 8th inning, right? Like I want to see, because I don't trust Hamas. So we'll see what happens. But we got hostages. We've got the makings of a good deal, and so now let's figure out if something can come from that. And the president should be commended for doing it. Democrats are, not surprisingly, unwilling to do that.
Well, he's exactly right, isn't he? The political opposition here in the United States, Democrats don't want to give Donald Trump his due. This is a president who got us the Abraham Accords peace deal in the first term. This transformative peace between Israel and 4 separate Muslim-majority states, is a president who did the seemingly impossible to get the hostages back this week on the 2-year anniversary, effectively to the day, of the horrific massacre, the pogrom, from the Hamas Islamists of October 7, 2023. It's not just those on the left. Certainly, it is some on the so-called right who seem to be a little slow to give President Trump credit for this deal as well. I'm not entirely sure that I've seen Tucker Carlson give President Trump credit for this ceasefire hostage deal. To that extent, folks like Mr. Carlson seem to share a whole lot in common with the ceasefire now keffiyeh-clad crazies who were ostensibly clamoring for a ceasefire for years, and now they have it, now the hostages are freed, and it's like nothing happened. Where is the credit? Nor is it just the Middle East. This president has been the most pro-peace president in the Middle East in my lifetime, in any of your lifetimes. But it's not just limited to that particularly combative region of the world. Just thus far, in his first year as president, Donald Trump reaching ceasefire deals between Cambodia and Thailand in Southeast Asia, between nuclear powers, India and Pakistan. I mean, that could have gone off the rails absurdly quickly. 2 nuclear powers? Are you kidding me? Whatever potential we might think that Russia and Ukraine have of inciting World War III, India and Pakistan had every potential in the world to do World War III. Trump got a ceasefire deal there, ASAP. In sub-Saharan Africa, a brutal tribal conflict earlier this year that was raging for years, frankly, seeping into this first year of the MAGA 2.0 Trump presidency. That tribal conflict between Rwanda and the Congo. Donald Trump getting a rapid ceasefire deal there as well. Perhaps the most under the radar, unheralded of all the peace deals that President Trump got, because there's so much attention on the Ukraine-Russia theater, there is so much attention on everything Middle East related, whether it's Israel versus Iran, Israel-Hamas, the most unheralded under the radar, Armenia and Azerbaijan. You might be forgiven if you didn't even realize that this happened. This happened a couple months ago. You had this incredible scene at the White House of the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan clinking their ceremonial champagne glasses, jointly calling for President Trump to win the Nobel Peace Prize, which he was absurdly denied of. I was in Armenia over 2 years ago. The delegation I was on took us to the border of Nagorno-Karabakh, the disputed territory. It's been a part of a bitter post-Berlin Wall, post-Soviet Union dispute between the Armenians and the Azeris. I was there. I saw it firsthand. It is a bitter, fractious conflict. Incredibly fractious. You have competing religious claims, ethnic claims, territorial claims, real hatred and distrust on all sides. And they were literally there at the White House, clinking champagne glasses. Just amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. And yet another reminder of another civilizational imperative. The exhortation, the teaching, and the reality that peace comes not through cowering, not from fecklessness. The United States is not a force for peace, is not a force for stability when it slinks back and buries its head in the sand like an ostrich. That is a recipe for chaos. It is not a recipe for order. When the United States projects confidence, not John McCain, Lindsey Graham style bombing throughout the world, no. But when you assert confidence, whether that comes in a surgical, tactical, military context, such as the Midnight Hammer B-2 bomber strikes in Iran back in June, or whether it comes in a diplomatic context, like which President Trump has been doing all throughout the world in his first term, when America projects confidence and strength, good things follow. This is the most pro-peace president of my lifetime and of your lifetimes as well. I have lots and lots of questions as to what is going to happen in Gaza after this. Is Hamas really out? Is Hamas really going to lay down their arms? Who's going to enforce that? Is Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority, which is barely a whole lot better than Hamas, are they going to have a role in Gaza? The Saudis, Emiratis, the more moderate Arab states, what's going to happen? I don't know. You don't know. President Trump doesn't know. There are a lot of questions remaining. But this week has been a joyous week when it comes to the release of the hostages. The release, the end of Hamas's final alive, living bargaining chips that they so cruelly and inhumanely took during their barbaric medieval Nazi-style pogrom 2 years ago. And this president, Donald Trump, deserves tremendous credit for that. If only his political opponents would be willing to acknowledge the highly apolitical, objective good that he is capable of doing, and indeed actually does, so often in many theaters throughout the world. His political opponents back home, seemingly not a whole lot better. The government shutdown now in day 16. Day 16 of what Republicans are calling the Schumer shutdown. What exactly are Democrats keeping the government shut down for? You'd be forgiven if you didn't have a crisp bumper sticker-esque answer. That's because there really isn't one. They really want additional funding for illegal alien health care. They really want additional taxpayer subsidization for various forms of transgender, quote-unquote, medicine. The horrific, irreversible, deeply contentious procedures, euphemistically referred to as so-called gender-affirming care. It is as if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and whoever else purports to be leading the Democratic Party, it is as if they cannot do simple math. Because last I checked, Mike Johnson was still Speaker. John Thune was still Senate Majority Leader. And President Donald J. Trump was still the president in the White House. They can screech as much as they may screech. They can make as much noise as they want. What actually are they going to be able to accomplish, given that reality? And what message are they communicating to the voters back home? True, this is not an election year, although there are some off-year elections coming up in Virginia and New Jersey mainly. It'll be a very interesting data point that we'll get here in just a few weeks' time in both the Old Dominion and the Garden State. But even in this year before the major midterms next year, what exactly is it that Democrats are hoping to communicate? That they remain the party of open borders and illegal aliens ruling the roost? That they remain the party of transgender medicine? This is not a good message, folks. This is not a good message. And the longer that this shutdown goes on, furthermore, ultimately, to bring us back to a conversation about conservatism, this is one of the reasons that I have really never been afraid of the government shutdown fight. I think a lot of conservatives have never been afraid of the government shutdown fight. Not only do Democrats look weak and feckless and impotent, and sending a deeply confused at best and a bizarre at worst message to the voters. Not only that, but the longer that this goes on, the more that the cause of actual substantive conservatism is served. Now, yes, I'm not saying you keep the government shut down forever. That's obviously unsustainable. People are eventually going to need their services. That could dry out. The military has to get paid, all these various things. But for a couple weeks, in the past, we've seen shutdowns 30 days, 40 days, give or take there. For a brief period of time, to have the government shut down and to see that, yes, there might be some rifts, to use the acronym of the day. There might be some reductions in force. There might be some furloughs, some layoffs. Seems like Russ Vought is having a great time as the director of OMB. I don't blame him. Russ Vought, someone we used to publish during the Biden administration at least 2 or 3 times at Newsweek, a wonderful, brilliant conservative mind. He's having the time of his life with these rifts, with these workforce reductions, these furloughs, these layoffs. And one of the reasons that Russ Vought, the head of the White House Office of Management Budget, is having such a good time right now is because he is proving, at least in part, he is proving the point of conservatism. That you don't need the sprawling modern Leviathan. You don't need the cradle-to-grave welfare state. You don't need the Orwellian old government, the life of Julia, for those of you who remember that, back during the Obamacare debate. Democrats had this advertisement of a fictional young girl named Julia who was essentially cared for all the way from her birth in the cradle all the way until her final years as a senior. That's the big government ideology. But it's belied when we have these shutdown fights. Because the planes are not falling out of the sky during a shutdown. The troops have not been denied active duty weaponry, paychecks, TRICARE, the healthcare, or anything like that. There's not a sudden surge or influx of illegal aliens racing across the southern border. The wall, the fence that has been built, is not suddenly coming down. America, in short, is going to be okay. So yes, the parties will have to figure this out. But the longer this goes on, the more politically painful it is going to be for the minority party. The minority party that simply does not have strong negotiating leverage. The minority party that seems not really know exactly what it is doing. That seems to have learned, as we will no doubt continue to reiterate on this show, that seems to have learned precisely 0 lessons that I can tell from their utter shellacking last November, where they lost all 7 swing states. They've learned absolutely nothing. And unless and until they do, they're only going to feel the pain of it. And the cause of conservatism is only going to benefit in the short to near term. That cause, the cause of conservatism, is what we will be advancing every single day, day in and day out, on our newly relaunched show here, The Josh Hammer Show. So once again, we are just thrilled to be bringing this show to you in a video-first daily format. I'm as grateful as ever to Newsweek for this platform, and I am as grateful as ever to our partners at Salem Media Group for this show joining the Salem Podcast Network, where it is our distinct privilege to join the amazing roster of talent at that venerable company. And yes, we will be trying, day in and day out, not just to further the cause of conservatism, but to further the ultimate overarching causes to which conservatism itself is subservient. The causes of truth and justice and the biblical inheritance shared by Jews and Christians alike, without which we in the United States and we in Western civilization, without which we are absolutely nothing at all. That is our day-to-day work. We hope you enjoy it. Make sure to subscribe to The Josh Hammer Show. If you've not already done so, leave us that review, leave us that comment. I'm Josh Hammer, and we'll see you tomorrow.